as a church, as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers, to announce the good news.
Pope Leo XIV announces new role for Luis Tagle, and it's surprising. Back in 2012, when a tearful Luis Antonio Tagle accepted his red hat from Pope Benedict XVI, many Catholics saw it as the beginning of something monumental. Tagle, charismatic, humble, and dubbed the Asian Francis, was seen not just as a man of the people, but possibly the Church's future. Fast forward to May 2025. A new pope has been elected, and the world waited with bated breath to see if Pope Leo XIV would grant Tagle a new and surprising role. On May 10, 2025, the Holy See press office released a calm but clear message. The Holy Father wishes, in fact, to reserve a certain amount of time for reflection, prayer, and dialogue before any definitive nomination or confirmation. That one line flipped the emotional script. Just days after a historic conclave, many expected Tagle's fate to be a signal of the Church's direction. But Leo XIV chose pause over power, and the implications are profound. The pontiff's decision to keep everyone, including Tagle, in their current roles shows both humility and strategy. It's a sign that Leo XIV is listening before leading, deeply aware of how high the stakes are. But here's where it gets interesting. Cardinal Tagle isn't complaining. He's not positioning or politicking. In his own words, Tagle said, "We wait for him to make the changes if he wants to make the changes." That level of grace under pressure says more about the man than any title could. This isn't just humility, it's leadership by example. And it's exactly why so many Catholics still look to Tagle as a spiritual compass. What experts are saying, this isn't a no, it's a not yet. Some might look at this and assume that Leo XIV is sidelining Tagle. But Vatican insiders say otherwise. According to church protocol, every head of a dicastery automatically offers to vacate their role when a new pope is elected. This gives the incoming pontiff a blank slate, the freedom to choose his team without awkwardness.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to reach 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
But Leo XIV didn't reject anyone. He simply asked for time. Time to pray, to reflect, and to truly understand who aligns with his vision. That in itself is a powerful endorsement of Tagle's integrity. If Leo had wanted him out, he could have acted immediately. He didn't. Instead, he's considering his next move with deliberation, not dismissal. Fear and rumors spread fast, but the facts tell a different story. It's easy to get swept up in the drama. One inflammatory post, and suddenly a new pope is accused of attacking one of the Church's most respected cardinals. But let's pause and breathe. What do the facts say? They say this: Pope Leo XIV is no firebrand. He's no authoritarian. In fact, Cardinal Tagle himself has described him as very human, very humble, but very discerning. Those aren't words of fear. Those are words of respect. From the heart, from someone who knows him personally. None of the reputable news outlets, not the Inquirer, not the New York Times, not CNN, not even BBC, have reported anything close to a terrifying statement. The Vatican itself has released nothing suggesting tension, animosity, or rebuke. In fact, Tagle remains in his current role. retained by Pope Leo XIV, as the Church prepares for new appointments. So where did this rumor come from? The answer is simple: speculation, sensationalism, and unverified chatter. Who is Pope Leo XIV? Really, a shepherd, not a shouter. If you're picturing Pope Leo XIV as some cold, calculating political figure, think again. This is a man described as discerning and deeply pastoral, someone who listens more than he speaks and prays before he acts. His background as a missionary in Peru, his fluency in multiple languages, and his deep familiarity with Latin American and Asian cultures make him anything but a Vatican insider wielding blunt force. His early decisions prove it. Upon election, he didn't sweep away existing officials. He didn't call press conferences or issue decrees. Instead, he retained all current Vatican leaders provisionally, Tagle included, and requested time for prayer, reflection, and dialogue. What kind of leader does that? One who leads from the soul, not from fear. After the election of Pope Leo XIV, many in the Philippines felt a wave of heartbreak. Tagle, seen by many as a natural successor to Francis, had not been chosen. The disappointment was real, and so was the pride. How did Tagle respond? With elegance, with humility, with love. He returned to Manila and gave a message, not of bitterness, but of hope. He acknowledged the emotion. He named the sorrow. But then he called everyone back to faith. Tagle acknowledged the disappointment many Filipinos felt. Yet he urged his people not to lose hope. He reminded them that God's plan is always perfect, even when we don't understand it. And just like that, a moment that could have divided became a moment that healed. Why do his words make people cry? It's not just what Tagle says, it's how he says it, with tears, with trembling, with truth. Here's why his speeches touch so many. Authenticity. Tagle doesn't pretend. He shares his doubts, joys, fears, and dreams. He cries when the moment calls for it, and in doing so, gives others permission to feel. Spiritual depth.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to reach 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
His words aren't political. They're prophetic. They remind us of why we believe. Shared humanity. In Tagle, people see themselves, not a prince of the church, but a brother in the struggle. He weeps when we weep. He hopes when we hope. That's why we trust him. A Filipino lay leader, interviewed after the Manila speech. If you see yourself as a servant, a bridge builder, or a quiet voice of truth in a noisy world, then Tagle is your mirror. He isn't the Pope, but he's something more relatable. A man who could have ascended and stayed grounded. A leader who could have retaliated and instead wept. A voice who could have shouted but chose to listen. That's why he still matters. Because in him, many Catholics still see the church they hope for. In summary, there is no verified evidence that Cardinal Tagle was betrayed by allies during the 2025 conclave. The narratives of betrayal stem from external smear campaigns, ideological divides, and the painful silence that sometimes follows unrealized hope. But Tagle isn't a victim of betrayal. He's a witness to endurance. And in a world obsessed with victory, perhaps his quiet dignity is the most powerful victory of all. You've heard the accusations. Now remember the truth. This isn't a story of betrayal. It's a story of resilience without resentment, of leadership without title, of faith that doesn't crumble when the votes don't go your way. So the next time someone tries to rewrite Tagle's legacy, remind them there was no fall. There was only grace. And grace, in the end, always speaks louder than betrayal.